Mark had reached his breaking point. The feeling had been coiling in his gut for weeks, a cold, heavy knot of suspicion. He was a man who believed in kindness, but there were limits, and tonight he'd reached them. For weeks, he'd suspected his maid, Maria, was stealing from him. Not just money, but things that mattered, things that held memories. He tried to ignore it, but he couldn't anymore. Tonight, he was going to prove it. He was going to follow her and confront her. But the discovery waiting for him wasn't the satisfaction of being right. It was something that would shatter his world, his certainty, and his heart forever. It had been 2 years since Sarah passed, 2 years of Mark learning to be both mother and father to their 7-year-old Lily. Their house, once filled with a chaotic symphony, now ran on a quieter rhythm. Mark, a graphic designer, worked from home, building his life entirely around Lily, a fortress of routine and love meant to protect her from the hole Sarah's absence had left. Into this world came Maria. She was in her late 30s, with tired eyes that held a deep, unreadable sadness, but a smile that was genuine, if fleeting. Hired to clean twice a week, she was a quiet, almost invisible presence. For 6 months, it worked perfectly. Mark felt a sense of stability returning. He trusted her. And that's what made the first crack of doubt so painful that IT started small. A $20 bill he'd left on the counter for the pizza guy, gone. I must have put it in my pocket, he thought. A few days later, a nearly full jar of Lily's favorite peanut butter seemed half empty overnight. Asterisk, was I that tired? Did I eat it straight from the jar? Asterisk, he was a single dad, overworked and exhausted. Forgetting things was part of the territory, but the small inconsistencies began to stack up. A can of imported soup vanished from the pantry. Extra rolls of paper towels dwindled faster than they should. He felt ashamed for even noticing. What kind of person counts their soup cans? He started paying closer attention and saw the pattern. The disappearances always happened on Tuesdays and Fridays, the days Maria cleaned. The thought was ugly. He tried to ignore it. Maria seemed so decent, a single mother herself. How could he accuse her, even in his own mind? He decided to test his theory with a small, shameful experiment. He left a $10 bill on his nightstand, tucked under a book. When he came back after Maria had cleaned, it was gone. The cold knot in his stomach tightened. There was no reason for her to be near his nightstand. The disappointment was sharp, followed by a surge of anger. He'd trusted her in his home, around his daughter. He'd shown her kindness, always paying her a little extra around the holidays. He felt like a fool. His kindness had been mistaken for weakness. The house, his sanctuary, began to feel different. Every corner held a question. He found himself mentally cataloging the pantry, his gaze lingering on Maria as she worked, searching her face for deceit. But he saw nothing, only the same quiet diligence, the same tired sadness. Could a person who looked so honest be so duplicitous? He decided to give her one last chance, a final test. This time, the item wasn't money or food. It was something with no monetary value, but immeasurable worth. That on his daughter Lily's dresser sat her treasures. Among them was an old, worn teddy bear that had once been his. With one button, eye slightly loose, and a faded red ribbon, it had been his childhood companion. He'd passed it down to Lily, a tangible link in their family. He knew Lily hadn't played with it in over a year. It just sat there, a dusty guardian of her childhood. He hated himself for using a cherished object as bait, but the anger was stronger. He needed to be sure. That Friday, he worked from his office, the door ajar, listening to the hum of the vacuum. When she was done, Maria knocked softly. "I'm finished, Mr. Mark." "Thank you, Maria," he said, his voice tighter than he intended. "Have a good weekend." He heard the front door click shut. He waited 5 minutes, his heart thumping, then walked to Lily's room. His eyes went straight to the dresser. The colorful rocks were there. The plastic animals stood in their formation. But the space where the old brown teddy bear had sat was empty. A wave of cold fury washed over him. It wasn't about the bear itself. It was the audacity to take something from his child's room, something that meant so much. The last thread of doubt snapped. The next few days were a blur of simmering rage. Every time he saw the empty space on Lily's dresser, the anger hit him again. He practiced the confrontation in his head. He'd be calm, firm. He'd lay out the evidence, state the facts, and fire her. But as Tuesday, her next cleaning day, approached, a different idea formed. What if she denied it? Of course she would. She'd look at him with those sad eyes and lie, making him the villain. The thought was maddening. He needed undeniable proof. Tuesday arrived, gray and overcast. Lily was at school. The house was silent. Mark was supposed to be working, but he couldn't focus. And then he saw it on the dining room credenza. A small, silver box of mementos was slightly ajar. His heart started to pound again. Inside were a few of Sarah's things, pearl earrings, a dried rose, and a simple silver locket he'd given her. It was the most precious thing he owned that he opened the box. The earrings and rose were there. The locket was gone, the air left his lungs. It felt like a physical blow. Not the locket. Anything but that. His rage was no longer simmering, it was boiling over. All thoughts of a calm confrontation evaporated. This was a desecration. He looked at the clock. Maria had left just 10 minutes ago. Without a second thought, he grabbed his keys and bolted out the door, fueled by pure fury. He spotted her at the end of the block, walking toward the bus stop, a worn bag over her shoulder. Not today, he muttered. You're not getting away with this. He drove slowly, keeping a careful distance. He expected her to get on a bus, but she walked right past the stop, her head down against the wind. Mark followed, a grim purpose settling over him. He was going to follow her all the way home. She walked for 15 minutes, her path taking her away from his neat, tree-lined streets and into a part of the city he rarely saw. The buildings grew crowded, the paint faded. Storefronts had bars on the windows. His anger was now mixed with unease. Where was she going? She turned down a narrow alley. He parked his car and got out, his heart pounding for a different reason. This was not a good neighborhood. He walked down the alley, the smell of damp garbage in the air. At the far end, tucked behind a dumpster, was a shack cobbled together from rotting plywood, corrugated metal, and tarps. The windows were covered with cardboard. His breath caught. This couldn't be where she lived. It looked uninhabitable. He saw her push the makeshift door open and disappear inside, that he stood frozen, his anger suddenly feeling hollow. This was poverty unlike anything he had ever seen up close. His fury was replaced by a profound, disorienting confusion. He crept closer. One of the cardboard window panels had a small tear in it. Driven by a desperate need to understand, he peered through. The inside was a single dark room. A bare mattress lay on the floor. On a few plastic crates turned upside down, he saw it. The can of soup, the jar of peanut butter, the roll of paper towels. His eyes scanned the room, and on the mattress his gaze landed on the old brown teddy bear. It was tucked into the arms of a small, frail-looking boy, no older than 8 or 9. The boy was pale, wrapped in a familiar-looking blanket, a throw that had gone missing from Mark's own couch a month ago. Mark felt the air go out of his lungs. This wasn't a thief's den. This was a nest of desperation. Then he saw Maria. She knelt beside the mattress, holding something that glinted in the dim light. "Look, Leo," she said, her voice gentle. "Look what I have for you. It's a good luck charm. An angel sent it to watch over you." She leaned forward and placed the object around her son's neck. It was the silver locket, Sarah's locket. The boy, Leo, coughed, a dry, rattling sound that shook his small frame. He reached up a thin hand and touched the locket. "Is it magic, Mama?" he whispered. "Yes, mi amor," Maria said, her voice thick with unshed tears. "It's magic. It will help make you strong." She stroked his forehead. "I brought you a friend, too," she said, gesturing to the teddy bear. "He's very brave. He'll keep you safe while I'm at work." Mark stumbled back from the window, his hand covering his mouth. The world tilted. The rage that had felt so righteous dissolved into a wave of shame, so profound it made him sick. He wasn't looking at a thief. He was looking at a mother, a desperate mother using stolen scraps to create a tiny bubble of comfort and magic for her terminally ill child. The teddy bear wasn't pawned. It was a friend for a lonely boy. The blanket wasn't sold. It was warmth. And the locket, it wasn't a trophy. It was a magic charm from an angel, a desperate, beautiful lie told to give a dying child a flicker of hope. He had seen a crime. She had seen a prayer. He slid down the wall of the opposite building, the reality crashing down on him. His suspicion, his anger, his self-righteousness. It was all built on a foundation of profound ignorance. He had been so wrong. So horribly, unforgivably wrong. Mark sat on the cold ground, the scene inside the shack replaying in his mind. That image of Maria placing the locket, his Sarah's locket, around her son's neck broke something inside him. He'd guarded it as a relic of a love he'd lost. She had used it as a symbol of a love she was desperately trying to hold on to. All he felt was a hollow, aching shame. He was the man with the comfortable house and healthy daughter, and he had been judging a woman who had nothing, who was fighting a battle he couldn't even comprehend. He finally pushed himself to his feet. His first instinct was to go in to apologize, but what could he say? "I'm sorry, I thought you were a thief," when you were actually just trying to keep your dying son comfortable? The words were absurd, insulting. An apology would only serve his own guilt while heaping more shame onto her. He walked away, got in his car, and drove. Not home, but to the largest grocery store he could find. He walked the aisles in a daze, filling a cart. Not just with basics, but with comforts. Thick soups, fresh fruit, juice boxes, soft cookies. He bought children's medicine, a digital thermometer, and the softest blanket he could find. He added a new set of children's books and a sketchbook with colored pencils. His next stop was a pharmacy for a humidifier. He drove back to the alley, his car now filled with bags. He set them gently on the doorstep. He hesitated, then pulled all the cash he had from his wallet, over $300, and tucked it into one of the bags. He knocked softly twice. He didn't wait for an answer. He just turned and walked away. The next few days were agonizing. He dreaded Friday, the day Maria was due to clean. What would she say? Would she quit? He knew he had to act as if nothing had happened to give her back her dignity. When Friday came, he was a nervous wreck. He heard her key in the lock and stayed in his office, listening. After a couple of hours, a soft knock came at his door. Maria entered, her face pale. She wouldn't meet his eyes. "Mr. Mark," she whispered, I have to give you my notice. I cannot work here anymore." His heart sank. "Why, Maria? Is everything okay?" She looked up, her eyes filled with a terrible shame. "I have taken things from you," she said, her voice cracking. "Food, a blanket, the teddy bear. It was wrong. I am so sorry." Mark stood up. He had to choose his words carefully. "Maria," he said gently, "I'm a single parent. You're a single parent. We do what we have to do for our children. I understand." "But I stole from you," she insisted, confused. "You are one of the hardest working people I've ever met," he continued. "My house has never been cleaner. Lily adores you. I need you here. Please don't quit." Tears streamed down her face. "But the groceries, the money, I can't pay you back." "There is nothing to pay back," he said firmly. "Let's call it a bonus. From now on, the kitchen is open. If you need anything, you take it. That's a new house rule." She stared at him, speechless. "But the locket," she finally choked out. "I will bring it back. My son, Leo, he is very sick." Mark's own eyes welled up. He knew what Sarah would have wanted. "No," he said softly. "You keep it. A gift from an angel should not be returned. Tell Leo my wife, Sarah, wanted him to have it." A sob escaped Maria's lips. In that moment, the wall between them crumbled. That was the beginning. Mark learned that Leo had a rare genetic disorder affecting his lungs. He used his savings to get them out of the shack and into a clean, small apartment. He found the best pediatric specialist in the city and paid for the consultation. Sitting with Maria in the waiting room, two parents united by a fierce love for their children, that he saw the life return her eyes. The weary sadness was slowly replaced by a cautious hope. She still cleaned his house, but they were partners now. A team. Lily and Leo met and became friends. She would read books to him, her bright voice filling his small room. One evening, months later, Mark and Maria were sharing a cup of tea in her new living room. I don't know how to ever thank you, Mark, she said quietly. You don't have to, he replied. You taught me something. That kindness isn't about giving what's easy. It's about giving what's needed. He looked at her and saw not a maid but a hero. He had set out that night to find a thief. Instead, he had found humanity. And in doing so, he found a part of his own heart he thought he had lost forever. We're often told not to judge, but it's easy to forget that behind every face is a story we know nothing about. This is a reminder that compassion is the most valuable thing we have. If this story touched your heart, please like and share it as a reminder of the power of empathy. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that explore the depths of the human heart. The journey from suspicion to understanding is often the longest path to travel. Mark began his consumed by anger, believing he was the victim. But by following his own resentment, he stumbled upon a heartbreaking truth. He learned that the things he valued, a few dollars, some food, old trinkets, were nothing compared to what Maria was fighting for. Her child's comfort, his dignity, and his next breath. In the end, it wasn't Mark who saved Maria. In a way, she and her son, Leo, saved him. They saved him from a life walled in by his own comfort and grief, reopening his world to the powerful, transformative force of empathy. They proved that the most shocking discoveries aren't the ones that confirm our worst suspicions, but the ones that reveal our shared humanity.